Greetings, gamers. Welcome to the fantasy. Time to settle in, get comfortable, and dream of heroic adventure. Today we're going to go through Ecks Ayarem, the tactical cleric. This build will go from level 1 till 20. I will do an explanation of all my choices along the way, tactics for combat, out of combat, the gear, the math behind it, to prove out whether or not the build is good. We'll have some pictures in here so you can see what the character looks like, and I'll explain roleplay, how I would play it, how I am playing it, and you can get some ideas if you would choose to play a character like this as well. So let's go through the concept. The idea behind this character, we're going to add some rogue levels to a cleric build, and we're going to use cunning action to avoid the concentration tax. We'll talk more about what concentration tax means later for those players who may not be familiar with that idea. This is going to fill in as a scout for any party that's missing that role, somebody to move ahead in stealth with a high perception, to look around, see things, and report back to the party. We're going to have some sneak attack damage, especially at low levels. This little bit of extra damage really makes a pretty big difference, so we're going to get that. We're going to have the Bless spell for boss fights or longer combats, and as we go through the game, we'll get better and better at blessing more and more of the party. And in 2024 rules, the Spirit Guardians are really overpowered, so part of this build is just to try to take biggest advantage we can of that spell at higher levels. To help you all understand up front what this character is intended for, what it's going to be good at, how I rate the overall build, we're going to divide the game up into 6 categories and give this character a rating for each. There's 3 combat roles: damage, just how much damage you do; support is about casting beneficial spells, helping your allies, healing them; control is about controlling the enemies; tanking is a form of control, just parking your character in front of the enemy so you're the one that gets hit; casting detrimental spells, counter spells, banishment, anything that divides the battlefield, controls the enemy's movements or actions. Those are forms of control. Out of combat, we've got exploration and solving. Exploration is about sneaking, infiltrating, hiding, perception to see what's going on. Solving is about investigating, learning what you have to do, and then being able to solve the problem with knowledge or skills. Sometimes that allows a little more setup. Guidance is a big part of problem solving. Guidance isn't very useful in exploration. It is a concentration spell now, and a lot of times during exploration, you have to make a roll on the spot, and you don't really have time to prepare or help or do better. The last one is social, out of combat stuff, influence, persuasion, leadership, deception, all of those kinds of things could fall into that category. So then if we take a look at where Ecks Ayarem lands, maximum 10 on the far left. You see what the bar looks like if it goes all the way to the top. In damage, we're going to give that a 7. There's ways that we could optimize this damage. The character's not meant for high damage. We're never getting extra attack on this character, but with Spirit Guardians and other things, we're going to be able to keep up with damage dealers and do as much or more damage than the average character. So that's good. In terms of support, we're going to be a cleric. We're not intending to be an in-combat healer. We're intending to heal people that get to 0 hit points and get them back up. Otherwise, we're going to cast good support spells like Bless and help our allies in whatever ways we can. Control on this character is minimal. It's not meant to be a control character. We do have some control-y type things, but that's not the cornerstone of what we're building. In terms of exploration and problem solving, I rank both of those an 8. That's this character's primary intent. We're going to be an in-combat cleric, but we're also going to be an out-of-combat scout. Exploring is going to be fine. Good perception. We'll have expertise in stealth and perception both, with wisdom and dexterity as our stats, so those will be as good as they can be for any character. Problem solving, we've got a lot of tools. We've got guidance as a cantrip that we can use when we need to, so we're going to be very useful for problem solving throughout the whole game. Influence on this character, not meant to be an influential character. It's pretty low charisma, and not really much build around that. Where this character would fit in, this character can go into almost any party unless you've already got a party full of scouts and clerics. With wisdom and dexterity as the main stats, you get good stuff for scouting, get good stuff for problem solving. There's always a need for healing in the game, so the cleric spells, the healing, the bless, always beneficial to a party, always going to help everybody else play their characters and have more fun. So just about any group you want, you could stick this character in, really not limitations. This is a character that I'm actively playing in a campaign on Monday nights. You can look us up. We're the Mythlanders. DM Feanor on Twitch. The stream starts at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time in the U.S. Come check us out. Let's go. The rules are a combination of 2014 and 2024 in the game that we're playing. So if you do log in and tune in and check us out, you're going to find that it's sort of a hybrid rule system. And the DM has some of his own custom rules that he uses, as any DM might. But for the purposes of this guide, from now on, everything we talk about is going to be strictly by the 2024 rules. I want this guide to be applicable for everybody. There's a few throwback things. We are going to pick a class that's out of the older rule sets. We're going to be a Death Domain Cleric when we get to that. But otherwise, it's really a forward-looking guide. All right, X's background for roleplay. He was once a mighty cleric. He's either the leader of his order or very high up in his order. But anyway, some kind of high-level cleric, a faithful servant of the people. One day, it was all gone. Magic no longer answered his call, and in fact, he couldn't even speak correctly anymore due to some kind of impediment or curse that had been cast on him, who knows. But then we had the bad years, right? So he's abandoned by his deity. He's cursed with this faltering speech. He remembers the ability to do great magics, but it's all out of reach now. He's just filled with darkness, and for years, he just wanders around in pain, anger, and shame. That's his low point. We see a picture here of Ecks looking pretty rough. He's barely alive at this point, living off the land, a shadow of his former self. But time heals all wounds, so after some period of this dark time, he starts to recover, starts to search for answers. Why did his deity abandon him? How can he do magic again? What's the secret for this curse that he can't talk anymore? So he's got a lot to figure out. He starts looking for answers. While he's looking for answers, he figures out that there's some magic that you can use a tattoo to draw the energy in, focus the energy, and release it later just like it was a spell. So he starts learning this art of tattooing and starts putting tattoos all over his body for spells. So that's where we find Ecks at level 1. He's been living off the land, sneaking, hiding, stealing, perhaps even. So it makes sense that at level 1 he is a rogue character. With a character like this, you need to have a reason for adventuring. When you say that your backstory is that you're someone important, you have to make sure that whatever that was is lost and gone in a way that still gives your character a reason to exist. If you want to say that your character was a noble in a faraway land, but his family got killed and he's looking for revenge, well, that's a reason to be in the story. If you're the prince of a far-off land and you'll be king someday, and your parents are still alive, then there's not much reason for adventuring. So you have to be careful with backstories like this to make sure that you have a reason for adventuring. X's reason, I think, is pretty clear. There's a lot of questions that he still has and wants answered. He wants to regain his former glory. He's back on the upswing. He's no longer feeling sorry for himself, and he's ready to get that rise to power and get back to where he once was. It's also fun to have something unique about your character. So to set this character apart from other similar characters, we've got the gray skin. We're very gaunt. We're deeply affected by these dark years that we've been through. He doesn't want to be recognized. He's kind of skulking around. He's not real interactive with people. He doesn't want to be recognized for who he was. So that'll set him apart from, any other random wood elf that might have chosen to be rogue at level 1. So he's got a little bit of a personality. And that's where we join the game with Ecks Ayarem at level 1. So I love custom spell actions and descriptions. So for me personally, giving this tattoo magic a little bit of life. So as he casts his spells, we'll have new tattoos. And even a crossbow, we can do a magical effect. So If you watch the game, you'll see the crossbow is like a manticore tattoo that launches crossbow bolts. It's actually just a heavy crossbow. There's nothing special about it, except it's fun to describe things differently. Starting species, we're going to take Wood Elf, and there's a lot of reasons to do this. Medium size, dark vision. It's got the trance for the 4 hours of sleep. Fae get advantage versus charm, which is good. 35 feet of movement. That's an exclamation point. That's a big reason why we're taking Wood Elf. Perception is available as an extra skill. We want lots of skills at level 1 for this character. That's kind of the point of taking Rogue. So the fact that we can grab perception from our species is nice. We're also going to get Druidcraft, Longstrider, and Pass Without Trace. We'll get Druidcraft at level 1, Longstrider as a spell available to us at level 3, and Pass Without Trace at level 5. Those are features of the Wood Elf class now, so those get added to our spell list for free. When it comes to that extra 5 feet of movement, it really is a big deal. And honestly, I think Wood Elf promises to be one of the subtly strongest species in 2024. I feel like if you look at a party's composition, it might always be good to have one Wood Elf. Not necessarily to have the whole party of Wood Elves, not that it's broken like Custom Lineage or Variant Human. Not that broken. But still, having one at a party I think is good, because getting Pass Without Trace, without ever needing to tech the spell, you just get it from your species, is almost a good enough reason to do it. And don't underestimate that 5 extra feet of movement. It's a big deal. Background options. With the new backgrounds, I looked through there, and there's reason to believe that most tables who adopt the 2024 rules are just going to allow backgrounds to be open, where you can pick your origin, feat, 2 skills, and a tool. But for tables that are more strict, where you actually have to pick from the list that they've put in the book, we're going to do that. We're going to make sure that we pick from that list and we follow that strictly. And then I will go and say, okay, if you are allowed freeform at your table, what you should do. So the background options, we want Wisdom and Dex, and we have to look first to the background options for the stats and the feat. We got to try to match up the best stats and feat that we can. If you only have one stat that you're looking for, it's not too bad. You get a lot of options. When you're looking for 2 stats, the options narrow down pretty quickly. So with us wanting both Wisdom and Dexterity for this character, we get 3 options. Guide gives the feat of Magic Initiate Druid, Stealth and Survival skills, and Cartography as your tool. Sailor gives Tavern Brawler, Acrobatics, Perception, and Navigator. Wayfarer gives you the Lucky Feat, Insight and Stealth as skills, and the Thieves tools. So if we take those apart and look at them, Rogue One already has Thieves tools as a skill and a starting equipment, so the Wayfarer is partially redundant. Lucky is a good feat. It's not as broken as it was in 2024, but I would consider this to be a completely legitimate background for the character if you wanted it. Sailor is out. I don't think Tavern Brawler is much good for this build. The skills are relevant. It's not horrible. If you wanted to do Tavern Brawler, you could, but I just don't think it suits the character here, so Sailor for us is out. So that leaves Guide as the best for me. I do like Magic Initiate Druid. That's going to fit with the class very well. I don't think it's the best starting feat, but I do think that it's good. So using Guide, I think, is a completely fine choice, right? For cantrips, you can get Message and Guidance right at level 1. Message is really good for this character. You can scout ahead. Message allows you to whisper back to your party as a cantrip, so you can report back what's going on without having to run back and forth and trying to deliver messages. First level Druid spell, there's a bunch of good stuff, but I would really take Goodberry. That's going to allow us to take our first 2 levels at Rogue and still have some healing for the party and support them that way. So Stealth and Survival skills are definitely relevant to the build. Cartographer, I think, is going to be fairly useless. Your DM might lean into it. It might be something that you could do. But with Cartographer, drawing maps, ink, paper, parchment, drawing tattoos on your skin, it's relevant, right? So you could just use your cartography skill to make tattoos, I would say. It could be a fun role-playing thing if you wanted to lean into it that way. A note on Goodberry, a lot of people I've heard say that Goodberry is good at low level and it's really bad at high level. At low level, it gives 10 hit points of healing across 10 different instances. Each berry that you eat is 1 hit point. So 10 hit points at level 1 is pretty strong. There's not many other spells in the game that will give a full 10 hit points reliably, so that's nice. But at level 15, it seems like it's going to drop off. Just remember, if you have a Goodberry, it's the difference between 0 hit point and 1 hit point. So if one of your allies is down laying on the ground and you don't want to use a spell, healing word, something like that to pick them back up, you can run over, feed them 1 Goodberry, and they will return to 1 hit point and not have to make a death save. So that one little berry can be pretty good at all levels. So I think overall, we're going to have our concentration spells taken up for the whole game by really, really meaningful spells like Bless and Spirit Guardians. So things like Fairy Fire that are also concentration are strictly out for me. If you're allowed to craft your own background, feats like Alert, I think, is honestly top to bottom the best feat. I would take Stealth and Insight as skills to free up other spots to do other skills with Rogue. And then Calligrapher's Supplies, that has the most connection for ink with the tattoos. That's not an optimized choice, but it's optimized for roleplay of Ecks. Alert is really good for the build. The intent is not to get a fast turn ourselves. We're acting as a support character in a lot of ways, and being able to roll a very high initiative and give that away to a character that wants it is good, because we don't really have to have a really good starting feat on this character. Our origin feat doesn't define how we do the build. So if the origin feat isn't defining the build, then we can take this support feat, give away our high initiative, let a damage dealer or a wizard or somebody like that who has a very impactful turn to go ahead and take that at the top of the initiative order if we get there. So that's why I think Alert's really good. Goodberry's probably better for the first 5 levels than Alert. Alert's probably better for the next 15. So depending on how your campaign runs, that's kind of my thoughts on things. With the class, level 1, we get sneak attack with Rogue, a d6. If we have an ally within 5 feet, or if we get advantage on the attack, either one will trigger sneak attack. And we'll be able to reliably get sneak attack for most attacks in the game if we use good tactics. We get perception from Elf already. We get stealth and survival from Guide already, so we don't need to take any of those skills. So the ones that we'll pick with the Rogue class are Investigation, Insight, Acrobatics, Sleight of Hand. Acrobatics is a bit weak here, but if your DM, when you're scouting, a lot of times, if you want to stay silent, it's less athletics and more acrobatics. So if your DM makes you roll checks while you're stealthed, acrobatics is more relevant. If your DM isn't that style or you don't know, it's probably better to take athletics in that slot. But for Ecks, the way I'm playing him, acrobatics is in. And then our expertise, we're just going to take expertise in stealth and perception. Perception is one of the best skills in the game, and stealth for this character is really one of the most relevant things, and we just always want to have high stealth rolls every time we roll stealth. So that's the 2 expertise that I believe are really the best. We could take expertise in Thieves' Tools. We could take deception and expertise in deception. And that way, if we get caught sneaking around somewhere, we could, fib our way out of it. So there's a lot of different things that we could do with the skills. All right, now let's talk through ability scores. Pretty simple. We're going to min-max here. 0 points in strength for a total of 8. We're going to put 9 points in dexterity and give it a +1 from our background for a total of 16. We're going to put 9 points in constitution for an odd score of 15, but that'll pay off later in the build. 0 points into intelligence for a total of 8. 9 points in wisdom for a total of 17, including the +2 from the backgrounds. And no points in charisma for 8. If you like a more well-rounded character, you can feel free to change this point by to your heart's content. If you're going to be playing a lower level game, let's say you think you're only going to make it till level 5 or 6, you could rebalance the stats like this. Get yourself a 16 in dexterity with 9 points and a +1. If you took Guide, you also have Constitution as a score that you can modify, so you can take 5 points there with a +1 and be at 14. That allows you to take a 12 in Intelligence, and there's good reasons to have this character at higher Intelligence at lower levels. That caps your Wisdom at 16 with 9 points and a +1 from your background. Again, this is not optimized for a long game. This is more optimized if your campaign is only going to go to like level 6 or so. For starting equipment, we're going to take the rogue money, and we're basically going to buy the same kind of gear that's on the list for rogue, but we do want a light crossbow instead of the short bow. I think that's better overall for how we want to play the character. We're going to use the 50 gold from Guide, and we're just going to buy a component pouch and a climber's kit. The climber's kit could be relevant. If anybody else in the party doesn't have one, you have the spare gold to get it. You don't really need other stuff. The component pouch is something you'll need as a spellcaster, even with just the Druid Initiate feat. You still want to have this component pouch, and that way you don't have to argue whether or not you've got these little components to do your spells. You also need a Druid Focus. You can buy Mistletoe for 1 gold. You still have gold left over from your rogue money, so it's no problem to grab a little bit of sprig of Mistletoe, hang it around your neck, or put it somewhere easy to access in case your GM's a stickler for that kind of thing where you have to touch your Mistletoe while you're casting your cantrips or good berries. You could also get some chalk, paper, ink, things like that to mark things in a dungeon, to do some cartography stuff since you have those skills, and you'll have a cartography kit if you want one. I'm not sure that making maps is that relevant in the early game, but if you want it, that's another option for you to get. Weapon masteries are in. I would take Nick for dual wielding. Early game, don't think of it as extra damage with the extra attack. Think of it as taking 2 attacks with more chances to trigger your sneak attack, right? If one of your allies is in melee, you can go into melee, make 2 attacks, use your Nick with your dagger. You're just trying to get that extra d6 of sneak damage in. We can use slow with light crossbow. It's situationally useful. You could even say, I don't even want to use ranged weapon mastery yet, and use something like Vex, and use short swords. And if you used Vex, you would still get 2 attacks. You would have to use your bonus action to do the extra offhand attack with 2-weapon fighting. Nick allows you to make it as part of the attack action to free up your bonus action, but if you don't really care about your bonus action that much, and this character doesn't in the early game, you could also use Vex and 2 short swords, and that way every time you hit, you get advantage on the next hit, which carries over to your next turn, which could give you sneak attack for free on your next turn. So a nice synergy there if you wanted to use Vex. Level 2, we're going to pick up a second rogue level. That's cunning action. And I consider cunning action to be like a full feat for a character. It's so good. It allows you from the second level for the entire rest of the game, you will always have a good bonus action. And I don't mean a useful bonus action. I don't mean you'll have something to do with your bonus action. I mean you will have a good bonus action. The hide bonus action with this character, once you're hidden, that gives you attack advantage on your next attack. That advantage is going to trigger sneak damage. So the synergy with this character is good. The extra move that you get from dash, if you move, you could move, dash, and then bonus action dash again. You've got 5 extra feet of movement. So this character's flying across the battlefield for 105 feet of movement at level 2. So you can get from one side to the other wherever you need to be. Like I said, if this character needs to pull a lever that's on the other side of the map, or go rescue a prisoner before the enemy gets to, they've got a prisoner, and sometimes there's a scenario where there's like, if the prisoner doesn't get rescued within 3 rounds, they get killed. You're there in 1 round. You just run to the prisoner instantly. So this cunning action is just so good on a character like this, like we're planning to build. When we're talking about the concentration tax, when you have a character that wants Bless, Spirit Guardians, Fairy Fire, Bane, any of the good spells that require concentration, haste, any of it, concentration is absolutely key to keeping that spell going, and the GM knows this. There's a lot of ways that the GM can try to disrupt your concentration. either with a big hit that gives you a high concentration check that's hard to make, or a bunch of little hits that keep making you over and over again make these DC 10 concentration checks, and sooner or later you'll fail. So most casters in 2024, I'm going to do a bunch of these builds, or at least that's my plan. And casters are almost always going to start with a level of fighter. Level 1 fighter is all armor proficiency, all weapon proficiency, weapon mastery, constitution saving throws as a skilled. So just having being trained in concentration as one of your saving throws is a big deal, right? So a lot of casters should start with a level 1 fighter just because it's that good to keep your concentration. When you get your first feat, Warcaster is so good in 2024 that it's almost non-optional for casters, which makes me hate it. Whenever a feat is so good that it's kind of the default thing that you have to do, it becomes the illusion of choice, and Warcaster is almost to the extent that it's the illusion of choice. It gives you advantage on concentration checks and also a bunch of extra abilities. It's crazy. You can cast with your hands full. You can cast a spell as a reaction when you get an attack of opportunity, and also you get advantage on concentration checks to maintain your spells. It's so good. And now it gives a plus to a stat as well. On top of all that stuff, it also gives a stat bonus. So I want to build characters without Warcaster because it's so good and it's so obvious that I feel like, okay, I have to make builds without this. But anyway, we're going to try to avoid the concentration tax simply by avoiding making concentration checks. With Cunning Action, we can cast a spell or take an attack, move, and then hide at the end of our action. Once we hide, we're a bad target. Sure, we'll get hit by AoE sometimes. Sure, occasionally we'll get chased out of stealth by something, or, an enemy will be able to see us. Who knows? But in general, if we can run off into a corner and hide and become a bad target for the enemies, we just won't be making many of these concentration checks. So what's better than having a skill that gives you a better chance of making your concentration checks? Never making the concentration checks at all. This is a theory. Now, I've honestly never played a character like this before in game in sessions, right? But I am playing it this way. Like I said, Ecks is an active character. He's currently level 3 in a campaign, and I'm telling you, so far it's working great. We just had a combat that went 13 rounds, and Ecks was never targeted with a concentration check until the spell had already worn off. At the very end of the combat, I got hit with an area of effect, but that's it. So the conclusion: we're going to keep up Bless and spells like that simply by avoiding being a target. Now this character at level 2, you're going to find your rogue is doing tons of damage. Now you probably told your party at the start of the game that you were going to be a healer. 10 sessions into the game, you're level 2, and you're in there doing like most of the damage in the combat. Your party might be like, you said you were going to be a healer, bro. What's up with out damaging the other characters in the game? So here's the deal. Sneak attack is pretty good. It takes a weapon that already has good damage, D8, it's decent damage die, and it adds another D6 to it. Hitting with the great sword is 2D6. Hitting with sneak attack at level 2 with a rogue is D8 plus D6. So if you think about it that way, there's no weapon in the game that has D8 plus D6 level damage at level 2. Now, that quickly changes as characters go up in level. You get to get a bonus attack in some cases to be able to get a bonus action that's an attack is going to outscale this, obviously. But at level 2, you're doing really good damage, and the ability to sneak, hide, shoot from stealth, get that advantage is going to mean that you're going to hit very reliably. Characters like a barbarian that have reckless attack are going to keep up. Mechanically, barbarian reckless attack is even better than sneak attack at this level, but the trade-off is if you're a barbarian, you have to stand in front of the enemy and be the target, whereas rogue is specifically not the target. right? At level 3, we're finally going to take Cleric level. Now, in the actual campaign, I took Cleric at 2, and then I took the second level of Rogue at 3, so I changed it up a little bit. But having played it that way, and, you know, especially if you take Druid, the Magic Initiate Druid at level 1, I think the 2 levels of Rogue right away are better. But in my campaign, level 2 was Cleric. But anyway, at level 3, we end up in the same place, right? Rogue 2, Cleric 1. We're going to take the Protector feature. That allows us to have a heavy crossbow. We get all martial weapons and all armors. So we can use heavy crossbow, upgrade to the push weapon mastery, and knocking things back 10 feet is interesting. So we like that. The proficiency in heavy armor isn't helping us. We've got 8 strength. We've got a lot of dexterity. We don't ever plan to wear heavy armor, but still, getting the medium armor proficiency means we can use a breastplate. Breastplates don't reduce your stealth checks. They don't give you disadvantage on stealth. Half plate does, so be careful about that. Even though half plate has better AC, we do not want to give away our stealth. So we're going to take for cantrips, Toll the Dead, Spare the Dying. The Spare the Dying is a role-playing choice. You can take whatever you want there. Toll the Dead is relevant and required. With the build as I'm going to build it, Toll the Dead cannot be any other thing. Right, so we have to have Toll the Dead. This is nice because we grabbed guidance through the Druid Initiate, and we don't have to take guidance here because we've already got it. Nice. I'm going to take Bless, Bane, Healing Word, Inflict Wounds. I could talk for hours about the difference between Bless and Bane. Basically, Bless is one of the most impactful spells in the game. If you take it across 3 characters at early levels, the bonus that they get to hit, the bonus that they get on saving throws for damage not done or effects not taking hold, the effect of Bless is incredible. Okay? Bane is like Bless, but Bane you want to use when there's a single large target, especially if you have other casters in the group. So once Bane is stuck, they have a penalty to their attack rolls and to their saving throws. It's the opposite of Bless, but Bless is going to be good on your party when you're fighting a bunch of different characters, things like that. Bane is going to be good if you're fighting a single boss mob. Put it on there, and that reduces the damage that's incoming to everybody else, makes it more likely that other spells from other casters are going to hit in the future. So we're going to take both Bless and Bane. We get one or the other. Obviously can't keep 2 concentration up. Healing Word is our only healing spell at level 1. It's the only one we need. I know it shouldn't be this way, but even after the changes to 2024, it's still going to be the case that letting somebody drop all the way to 0 and then using a healing spell to bring them back up is going to be the most efficient way to use healing. Healing Word is a bonus action. It has range, and it's anybody who's played a Cleric before knows that there's just those times where your Barbarian has run off into the middle of nowhere, or your Ranger was way back behind the group and got attacked, and you have to get to that character, and your movement is not enough. So you're standing like 10 feet away, you can't help, you can't touch to get your cure wounds off. So Healing Word is just, it's what we're going to use. It's less healing. We know that it's less healing. We don't care. We just want to be able to cast it when we need to bring a target back up from 0. Inflict Wounds is kind of a role-playing choice. We're going to drop Inflict Wounds. As soon as we get 2nd level spells, Inflict Wounds will drop off this list and probably never come back. For a long time, this character is just going to be using Bless as the only leveled spell. So first combat of the day, you Bless. Second combat of the day, you Bless. Third combat of the day, you have no spell slots. If you have to use the Healing Word, use it. But remember, you've got a cunning action dash. So if somebody needs a Healing Word, it should be that you can dash 70 feet and shove a good berry down their face and have them be fine. Okay, you shouldn't need Healing Word for combat. Okay, so let's check out what level 3 looks like in combat. Remember, at level 3, we also get a free casting of Longstrider. And at this point, I'm probably more of a Kingmaker, so my party in Mythlanders has a Barbarian in it. I will most likely put Longstrider on the Barbarian. Having your melee character be able to run around and get to targets is more damage, right? So Barbarian on target is greater than Longstrider on self. Later that will change, but also later we can put Longstrider on the Barbarian and use a spell slot to put it on ourselves as well. We have it as a spell. So we can have both. Longstrider is not concentration, lasts an hour. If you go from one combat to another, as long as you don't take a short rest, Longstrider should still be considered up. Some GMs allow you to use Longstrider in the morning and have it all day. If your GM is like that, that's super nice. It's the way it runs in Baldur's Gate 3. You just keep Longstrider all day. So maybe that's the way it should be. Talk to your GM. But at this level, Longstrider is most often going to go on somebody else. So for the turns, we can move a couple feet into the right position. Let's say move 10 feet to get the right position to bless. Bless the characters that we want to get that spell onto. Finish our movement somewhere that we can hide. That's fantastic. Another turn might look like we're in stealth. We're hidden from the prior turn. Now we're going to jump out, do our attack with advantage, get our sneak attack off. Then we're going to move to another vantage point and hide. My GM's kind of a stickler for these kinds of things. If you don't use any movement and you just try to hide in the same spot that you were already hiding in, sometimes he says, well, you know, they saw where you were hidden, right? So for my character, for my particular game, for my GM, usually I'm going to have to attack, move a little bit, and re-hide, and then I can legitimately say, okay, I went somewhere else and hid. Another turn, you might move. You might take your cunning action to dash, and then you've still got your whole action for free. And whether that's an attack or a good berry or pulling a lever or whatever it is. So 70 feet of movement. It'd be 90 feet of movement if you have Longstrider on yourself. Wherever you want to go on the battlefield, and you still have your action left. As far as I can tell in the rules, I've never seen it where you can't do 2 dashes in the same round. So you could also dash with your action if you needed that much movement. If you get caught in melee, you can do attack, nick attack, and that nick attack doesn't count as a bonus action with the nick ability. So you can do your 2-handed attacks, use your cunning action to disengage, and then move so that you're not in melee anymore. That's what we would want to do. With this build, Ecks is going to include himself for the Bless, and there's a good reason for that. If you're casting Bless, not just Ecks, but anybody who casts Bless, typically you want to target yourself in the Bless, just because that also gives you another D4 to your concentration checks, right? It's a saving throw, you get an extra D4, and it helps you maintain concentration on that Bless. It doesn't do the party any good if you lose the Bless, right? So if they complain and say, you should have done these 3 characters, you're the healer, you're the cleric, you should not be blessing yourself. Well, bless yourself. Bless yourself so that you can maintain your concentration. It doesn't do any of the people any good if you lose your concentration and lose the bless spell altogether. Just a little bit of math. We got a heavy crossbow at level 3. We're doing D10, D6, plus 3. It's 12 average damage. This is just with a straight crossbow, non-magical. Against AC 13, we've got an 88% chance to hit. If we got Bless up and running, that increases to a 95% chance to hit for an average of 11.4 damage per round at level 3. It's pretty good. It's on par with most other characters at level 3. By the time you get up to level 5, other characters will start getting their extra attacks and things like that and start passing this build up, which is fine, because we're going to be doing cleric stuff, and then we're going to catch right back up with them and be doing as much damage as they ever will. So let's take a look at that. All right, if you're just a normal cleric, if you're just a level 3 cleric, your normal damage per round is bad. If you're using Toll the Dead, it's a DC, let's say DC 13 save against, and if they save, they take no damage at all. Spiritual weapon damage, if you add in a level 2 spell and you add in spiritual weapon, you can keep up on damage. Uses a 2nd level spell slot, and anybody who's used spiritual weapon knows it's awful. You summon it, it hits something, and then that character moves 30 feet, and the spiritual weapon can only move 20 feet. It can't take attacks of opportunity. So once the enemy moves away from the spiritual weapon, you don't attack with it again. You just, every bonus action, you're running it around the battlefield trying to catch up, and it's bad. So, yeah, in order to keep up at level 3 as a cleric, you'd have to use spiritual weapon. But with 2 levels of rogue, and trust me, when you run into combat as a low-level cleric or even as a low-level wizard, and the only thing you have to do for your turn is a cantrip, and the cantrip does low damage, it feels really unrewarding. So this character, you get a good attack, that heavy crossbow, hit with the sneak attack. It's valuable. It's hard-hitting damage. You're going to be as good as any other damage dealer in your party at this level, and also you're the person doing the bless. So it's nice. Out of combat, you're still the party scout. You can move ahead of the group. You got a set +7 to your stealth roll, and you got a +7 with your perception checks. Remember, that's where we've got both of our expertises. We've got the message cantrip from Druid, so we can talk back to the party. It's not a lot on social stuff, but we could train deception, like I said, if you thought you were going to be sneaking. Investigate is reasonable. Thieves' tools are reasonable for picking locks. The reason I put my expertise in stealth and perception, those skills you don't really have time to prepare for. With thieves' tools and disarming traps and things like that, oftentimes you can get guidance. You could put guidance on yourself. You could potentially get help from another person in the party who also has thieves' tools. So you can kind of set that up for a much better roll. If you suddenly have to roll stealth in the middle of a combat with your cunning action, yeah, you don't get to do anything but just roll stealth. So we want those to be the best rolls. All right, so roleplay at level 3. We're still this scrawny, tattooed elf, right? Still covered in tattoos. Don't have much gear. Still having problems with our speech. So, he says, let me check ahead. I'll let you know if there's danger. And he disappears. Comes back with a message confirming the adversaries. And then it's into combat. So the combat's joined. Maybe he'll have some clever saying. Ecks is a very dry, serious character, so he'll say something like, share this bit of divine power and bring down these foes. Bless all your characters that you're going to bless. And then for the rest of the combat, you don't see him. He's gone. He's hidden. Occasional crossbolts streaking out of the shadows. Little glimpses of him moving from one place to another. That's it. He's gone. Unless somebody needs to be saved, you don't see him for the rest of the combat. You just see crossbow bolts sticking out of stuff. So that's kind of the role play for Ecks. For my character, of course, he lost his religion, and here's where he's finding his faith again. So he's, made a connection with a deity again. He's got his cleric powers are coming back. The answers, the magic is answering again. So this is a big role-playing level for Ecks, getting his cleric back. Early gear, we'd love to have a +1 heavy crossbow when we can get it. There's special ammunition, walloping ammunition, stuff like that. That's fun if your DM allows that and it's available in the game. The big item that we're going for is +1 Amulet of the Devout. I'm actively working on trying to establish a way to craft one or get one in the game, working with my DM. He doesn't give away stuff for free or easy, but I will be able to get this item, by working away at it and kind of role-playing into it. But I think that's one of the biggest items that you can get on this character. It's really critical. So get that. Wand of Magic Missiles. When you cast Magic Missile, you get 3 missiles that each do damage. If you need to disrupt an enemy caster, even a Magic Missile spell from a wand, if it rolls, 1 + 1 is 2 damage per missile, don't care. It's 3 concentration checks. So grab a Wand of Magic Missiles on this character. Again, your support. It's not just damage that you want to do. If the enemy's concentrating on darkness or some area of effect damage spell, some kind of spell that you need to disrupt, hold person, whatever it is, A Wand of Magic Missiles is handy, and it recharges. I believe Wand of Magic Missiles, as written, recharges D6 charges per day, and it has 7 charges. And as long as you don't run out, it always has 7 charges or so. Braces of Archery are uncommon. They're a wondrous item. They're called a wondrous item, so they're not always available. But that's nice. It could add 2 damage to your ranged attacks. Belt of Dwarven Kind, I feel like, is really one of the best early game items for any character. The poison is nasty at low levels, and a lot of low-level monsters have poison or poison effects. So Belt of Dwarven Kind gives you +2 con, which helps you make con saves against poison. It gives you advantage on your saves against poison, and gives you dark vision. So characters that don't have dark vision can solve dark vision with the Belt of Dwarven Kind. It's just set up in a way that just each little trinket thing that it gives is really good. Extra constitution for extra hit points, help against poison damage, and then the dark vision. So it's really good. If your GM is generous, you might get it early in the game. Usually that's something you have to wait for till mid levels. Let's say somewhere 5 to 12 in that range. You can get it in most campaigns. Level 4 and 5, we're going to take Cleric again. So we're going to have Channel Divinity at level 2. And then level 3 is where we're going to get our subclass, right? We're going to get second level spells. We're going to get our subclass. We're going to get just all kinds of stuff. We're going to take Lesser Restoration. We're going to take Spiritual Weapon. And I think we have to drop Inflict Wounds at this point. Yeah, we'll take Spiritual Weapon. I don't think we'll ever use it. If you have something else on this list you want, fine. Don't take Aid. There's a reason we're not going to take Aid. It'll become clear later. But for this particular build, the way we're building it, Aid is not going to be a good spell for us. +5 hit points and +5 to your maximum hit points is pretty good. It's a pretty good spell in a lot of parties with a lot of classes. But we're going to be doing some stuff with temporary hit points. And again, we're only going to be healing people when they're down. So that extra 5 hit points is always going to be at the top. And we're not refilling those hit points. So I think when we get to our feet, it'll become more clear. But yeah, we're not taking Aid. Again, there's nothing here that defines the build. So Lesser Restoration, I think, is handy to have. Again, if you're a Cleric, you want to have these things ready. If your party needs them, having a spell in a spell slot is good. For the most part, I would probably just be upcasting a Bless to second level, grabbing a 4th target, and using the lower level spell slots for Bless later in the day or for Healing Word. There's a lot of broken subclasses for Cleric. Twilight and Peace Cleric are still busted. The new stuff in the handbook is good. Trickery is nice, and the Light class, I think, is really a standout in the new 2024 handbook. So there's a lot of things you could take with Cleric. Cleric is just lousy with good subclasses. And not many bad ones. I mean, even the Cleric subclasses that aren't that good are still pretty good. We're going to pick one of the lesser classes. And again, this is a roleplay choice. There's some synergy that we're going to have with the build that I think is fun. So it's not totally like a throwaway choice, but Ecks is going to be Death Domain Cleric. Reaper opens up in between options. So we have pretty good single target damage. We're going to have good multi-target damage with Spirit Guardians later on. But the Reaper says if 2 targets stand close together, you cast a cantrip with the Necromancy School of Magic. You can affect 2 targets that are within 5 feet of each other. So at level 5, Toll the Dead has also increased to 2d8 or 2d12. We can also pick up Chill Touch. Chill Touch is not that great, but if you fight something that's healing a lot, I don't know, troll or something like that, and you don't have fire to keep it under control, you can use Chill Touch to prevent the character or enemy from healing. It's situationally useful. It's pretty meh. You could also take Poison Spray. It's okay. But yeah, Because just to be clear, Death Cleric says you can pick a necromancy cantrip from any spell list. So I would say Chill Touch just for the anti-healing effect. We're pretty much going to be using Toll the Dead if things are within 5 feet of each other anyway. I can't think of a reason we would want Poison Spray instead. It can be challenging to roleplay a Death Cleric. Death Clerics aren't necessarily evil, but it feels kind of evil. Critical Role did a good job of that with, Vax and how Matron of Raven works and all that. So it's kind of like that, where the act of dying is a foregone conclusion, and once somebody has died, it's our job to respectfully take them across to the other side. So it's a challenge for role-playing, but it suits Ecks' story the best, and it's interesting. And it's some fun synergy with Spirit Guardians that we'll get to. The Cleric spell list for Death Domain is really pretty poor. We're not really going to use False Life, Ray of Sickness, Blindness, Deafness, Ray of Enfeeblement. This is all stuff that we're probably not going to use. Animate Dead, situational, useful. Vampiric Touch could help in a certain combat. Blight and Death Ward, Anti-Life Shell, Cloud Kill, those things at higher level. They're not bad to have in the spell list, opens up some options. But overall, I would give this, a D rating on the spell list. We're not here for the spell list. Touch of Death, our channel divinity can now be used with a melee attack to do extra necrotic damage. We're only planning to make a couple melee attacks a day, so pretty much anytime we make a melee attack, it wouldn't be bad to just go ahead and use our channel divinities to get some extra damage. 5 plus twice cleric level, so even at level 3, that's still 11 extra damage, and we can do that the number of times we have for channel divinities. So it's okay. Level 6, that's our feat level, right? So at level 6, we're going to take a feat. Warcaster is the optimal feat for most casters. Fey Touched, if you look at Fey Touched, it's good. It would be fantastic for this class. It's good mobility. But Misty Step's a bonus action, and we already have Disengage or Dash as a bonus action, so Fey Touched gets a little less good because we already have a good bonus action all the time. There's also things like Skill Expert, Shadow Touched, Chef. I know people don't like the Skilled feat or Skill Expert feat, but if your character's all about skills, Skill Expert lets you pick another skill, pick another expertise, and get a stat bonus. That's pretty good. If you're going back to the older stuff, if your GM allows Elven Accuracy, that's probably the best feat in terms of just straight out guaranteeing your damage. You're attacking with advantage almost all the time when you're attacking. Elven Accuracy allows you a third dice and super advantage, if you want to call it that, and a plus to your wisdom that you could take. So yeah, Elven Accuracy is good. Everybody knows it's good. But Ecks will be taking Inspiring Leader. I read this feat and my jaw just I had to pick it up off the table. I think this feat is subtle. If 2 players in your party have the same feat, it's completely redundant. So it's only good if only one character in your party has it, but it is really crazy. After any long or short rest, up to 5 targets, I think, up to 6 allies. Up to 6 allies get your character level plus whatever skill you increased bonus in temporary hit points. So at level 6, that's level 6 plus we increased wisdom to 18. So that's plus 4. So it's 10 hit points. Now think about this. You wake up in the morning, it's 10 hit points across 6 targets. Our party in Mythlanders has 5. So let's use 5. 10 hit points across 5 targets. That's 50 hit points. When you get to very high level and you get the heal spell, the heal spell heals 70 hit points. We're giving away 50 temporary hit points, no spell slot, no ability activation, no anything. All you got to do is wake up. We give a speech, 10 temporary hit points for everybody that that wants it. And of course everybody wants it. 10 free temporary hit points. Now let's say you do 2 more short rests throughout the day. At each short rest we get another 10 temporary hit points. That's 50 hit points 3 times a day. That's 150 temporary hit points. It's insane. It's crazy. And you could already get this at level 4, and it would be 8 hit points instead of 10, so it would only be like 120 hit points throughout the day. But still, the amount of attrition that this represents is crazy. By the time you get to a rest, your barbarian and your paladin have lost their temporary hit points somewhere along the way. Maybe one of your other characters lost their temporary hit points, maybe not. But if they didn't, still don't mind refreshing it. This is too good. This is too good. We had to find a different way to pay the concentration tax just because we want to be an inspiring leader. So we're going to use our wisdom to be an inspiring leader. And again, it's not an optimized build for damage. We're not taking a damage feat. We're taking something that makes our character broader instead of better, if that makes sense. At level 7, we're taking Cleric again. Seer Undead comes into play. The Wisdom modifier times D8 radiant damage to Undead when using Turn Undead. It could be situationally interesting. Turn Undead is better in the 2024 rules, but yeah, I don't know. Again, if you don't fight undead, then it's completely useless, right? But situationally, it can be pretty cool. 3rd level spells, I consider Spirit Guardians and Revivify non-optional. Those spells have to go on the list no matter what. They have to stay on the list. They cannot come off the list. There's no day when you're going to take Revivify off the list. When you're level 18, you're not going to take Revivify off the list. You do have to pick up your diamonds. Make sure you have the material components for Revivify. Save up your money. Buy like $900 worth of diamond dust, 900 gold worth of diamond dust. Make sure you have that. Spirit Guardians is radiant damage if you're good or neutral, or necrotic damage if you're evil. Work with your GM. There's no reason you can't have necrotic damage if you want it. I want necrotic damage. It fits my character. There's a reason for it. I don't want to have to be evil, but if I have to be evil, I guess I will. But we want necrotic damage for our Spirit Guardians. Pass Without Trace is online at level 7, so we're going to take a dip now and take a look at what the character looks like. Level 7 in action. We have Pass Without Trace, came online at level 5. Once per day we can use it for free as a Wood Elf. That's a 2nd level spell slot if we want to cast it more than once. Lasts for an hour. It is concentration. So if you cast Bless or Spirit Guardians or anything else, you lose your Pass Without Trace. People do have to stay within 30 feet of you to take advantage of it. You've still got Long Strider that you can cast on yourself or other people. You can see here Ecks is looking a little better by level 7. He's probably got some gear. Probably got more of a smile than he used to have. You can also do this pre-combat taxi thing. Now, this is something that my GM is not a fan of, because it's kind of skirting the border of what's it feels like breaking the rules. But according to everything that I know and that I've read in 2024, this will still work. When you know that you're going to join combat, you've scouted ahead, you grapple another character. Let's say you've got a paladin and their base movement is 30 feet. You just grab them by the collar. They willingly fail their save. Their movement goes to 0. When you're grappled, your movement goes to 0. So even if it's a friendly grapple, by definition, you're still grappled. By definition, you still have a speed of 0. So when you roll initiative, that person that you're going to taxi needs to have lower initiative than you. That's all. If they roll higher initiative than you, just drop down below you in initiative. On your first turn, you can still cast your Bless spell. Use your bonus cunning action dash. Then you move half your distance when you're dragging a grappled target. So if we've got Long Strider on, we've got 45 base feet of movement. We'll get up to 90 feet of movement with a move plus a bonus action dash. So we could carry that ally up to 45 feet out into the room. What Ecks is more likely to do is to go 30 feet forward, which will take 60 feet of movement, and then 30 feet somewhere else to make themselves a bad target. But then your paladin starts their turn with an extra 30 feet further into the room than they thought they were going to be. It's not game breaking, but it is kind of cheaty. So, and you don't really need to do something else with your first turn. Again, you have the movement to be able to help. And, Kingmaker. So take your slower character out there, throw them off in the middle of the room, and let them get into melee with the character they need to. I would consider at level 7 that this character would be called a support skirmisher. So we're going to be blessing, moving, hiding. Every turn, our attack's going to be basically the same. We pop out a stealth, attack with advantage, get our sneak attack. We move and rehide. And we just keep that bless up by being a bad target. We can move, attack, and still healing word. In fact, you can move, healing word, move, and then use your action to feed somebody a good berry. So there's like a ton of different stuff you can do. But your turns are pretty simple, right? You're moving and attacking, or you're moving and helping. You could also disengage. Let's say there's a target that you really need to stop from healing. You can move in, use your chill touch, get the chill touch on them. It's a touch spell now. Used to be ranged, but now it's touch. Then you use your cunning action to disengage, and you leave. So it's a way that you can use that chill touch without getting caught in melee. In and out. We could Toll the Dead. So this is like let's say this is a fight where we use Bless. This is a fight where we use Spirit Guardians. So if we're using Spirit Guardians, we could either use a shield in an open hand, or we could still use our weapon if we feel like we didn't need the shield. But, you could change the configuration on your character to suit the combat. The first turn, we're going to cast Spirit Guardians. The way Spirit Guardians works now in 2024, enemies take damage, they make a save and take damage when the emanation enters their space, or, parentheses, when they enter it on their turn or end their turn in it. They can only be affected by it once per turn. So it's not like they enter it and take damage and then end it and take damage again. It's only once per each turn, but it can be once on our turn and then once again on their turn, which is nice. But now you can just run around the field. You can run around and just take your emanation and overlap it with all the characters that you want, and they'll all take the damage. Used to be that you had to somehow pull them into it because they had to enter. But now, all you have to do is just touch them with the emanation, and they take the damage. If anybody has a different reading on it, leave it in the comments below, but that's what it says. When the emanation enters their area, or when they enter or end. So that leaves us with Longstrider on. We cast Spirit Guardians, and we just start dashing around the field. We can use Toll the Dead. Again, if we've got a shield on, we've got an open hand, we can cantrip all we want. Toll the Dead isn't concentration. It doesn't stop us from casting Healing Word, because remember, you can only cast one leveled spell per turn, but you can cast a leveled spell and a cantrip. I think that's still true in the 2024 rules. I'm pretty sure that I checked that, and that's still true. And you can do it in any order now. It doesn't get messed up. But yeah, so you can just run around with a shield and an open hand, Toll the Dead as your action, run around, use a dash, hit all the targets with Spirit Guardian, kill everything. It's crazy. You can also move, dash, and hide. Now your GM might say, look, you've got these big cloud of Spirit Guardians floating around you. It's not like you can really hide. But hide, the idea of hiding doesn't necessarily mean that enemies don't know where you are. In fact, when you're hidden, I think the rules even say they know your general location, but they don't know your exact location, so they take disadvantage to hit. Same thing's still true. We can have the Spirit Guardian aura. They know where we are, but it shouldn't stop us from being in stealth. Check with your GM. We can move, Toll the Dead, still Healing Word or Good Berry. Just the action economy on this character is fantastic. The emanation is so big. Look at the size of this room. This is a huge room. You look at it and you're like, okay, this is me. I'm the little blue dot over here. I'm the cleric. I need to touch all of these. How am I going to do it? Well, if we've got 45 feet of movement, look at this. We can run out 45 feet and get these two in our emanation as we go by. We can turn the corner and come back, get the guys on the back wall, get the guys on the bottom. 90 feet is kind of, back to the front half of the room. And then you've still got 45 feet. You can run all the way back to the door and out. Now that's action dash, bonus action dash, and move. 45 feet move, 45 feet dash, 45 feet bonus action. But this huge room, you just run through the room, hit 6 targets, and run out of the room and around the door. And they can't make ranged attacks against you. And you just run back into the room the next turn and do it again. Crazy. It is crazy how good this spell is now. It's also crazy how much a little bit of extra movement and mobility is going to get you out of this spell. If we were a standard character with 30 feet of movement, we could move 30 and dash, and we would end up in the middle of the room, or we would just not be able to get all these targets. All right. We could also do something crazy like this. 45 feet of movement into the middle of the room, 45 more feet over into the corner, and if there's somewhere for us to hide down here, we hide. That corner is more than 15 feet away from everybody. So if they want to come get us in melee, they have to walk in and take damage from the emanation on their turn. So it's kind of a high-risk move, right? Because if they come down there and find you, you're 90 feet away from the rest of your party and they're trying to catch up. So maybe it's bad news. But again, if there's somebody to be saved, if it's a limited time combat, if you really just need to pack in as much damage as fast as you can, kind of a burst damage kind of thing, run down here, hide, make them come to you. If they do, they'll take a second instance of the damage. It's pretty good. So just as a reminder, this character, your job is still support and damage. The gimmick is to stay hidden or positioned tactically to be an undesirable target. We're going to try to avoid concentration checks because we really don't want to make them. Casters are the most dangerous, but like we talked about with Magic Missile as a very disruptive spell, easy to break concentration. If they can't see you, they can't use it. Magic Missile says specifically a target you can see. We have a +9 stealth check at level 7, so that's good. We shouldn't be failing many stealth checks. Even if we get a low roll, it's still past the passive perception of a lot of things in the game. We also have a +10 perception. Remember, our wisdom went to 18, so +10 on perception now. Scouting, message for talking to the party, pass without trace, long strider. We can hopefully sneak up or avoid combats altogether sometimes. We've got all these temporary hit points from Inspiring Leader. At level 7, we're up to 12 per party member per rest. If you're ending the day and you still have spell slots, remember you can cast that Goodberry. They last 24 hours, so they will last from the time you cast them up until your next long rest. So you can rest cast the Goodberries and use them the next day. Amulet of the Devout is still the most important item. For Toll the Dead to work, we really need our DC to improve for a lot of the stuff that we want to do. Any of the spells that we cast, we want to have the plus to hit on the touch spells, like Chill Touch, things like that. Spirit Guardians save is affected by the amulet, so more damage from Spirit Guardians if they fail. It's really important. It's the best thing for this class. A +1 crossbow, breastplate, shield, those kinds of things are nice. If your GM is into it, look for a Ghost Step tattoo. It's thematic for the character. Any of the tattoos are thematic. I love Ghost Step. It gives this character an option to just not be pinned down, become ethereal, walk away. Blood Fury tattoo is one of my favorite items in the game. I love it. It's thematic for this character. It would work. At level 7, in roleplay terms, by then, Ecks will have regained a good portion of my form of glory. I won't be avoiding recognition anymore. I won't mind if people know who I am. Being a death cleric could be unsettling for people. I'm going to use that in game. Sometimes it'll be fun, sometimes it'll be awkward, but yeah, Ecks is not an attractive or charismatic type character. He's the sort of leader that does what must be done, and I think people respect him for that. I say leader because I took the feat, right? I took the feat to be an inspiring leader, so again, that's whether or not I'm the leader of the group in the roleplay sense is different than whether I'm the leader of the group in the reality sense, right? But Ecks certainly will be inspiring, give a lot of free hit points out. I think he will still be pretty cut and dried, and when it turns to violence, he will be very dedicated and intense in dealing violence to his enemies. Rogue level 3. So beyond level 7, we really got to start looking at Rogue level 3. There's a lot of reasons for this, mostly True Strike, but it's tough. I looked at it time and again, and this is a great place to grab True Strike, grab a couple wizard spells. Arcane Trickster just opens the door for all kinds of fun stuff, and we don't have to lose a caster level. It's great. It's just great. But in looking at, just like saying the Amulet of Devout is the most important thing by far for this character, then also getting to 20 wisdom is the most important thing for this character. So we want all of these things, but we're going to have to wait until we cap our wisdom. So let's keep going, Cleric. Level 8 will be Cleric 6. We get Inescapable Destruction. Ignore necrotic resistance. Now, note, if the monster's immune to necrotic, it doesn't stop you, it doesn't allow you to do anything to something that is immune to necrotic. But anything that's resistant to necrotic damage, we don't care anymore. And this is the payout for the necrotic Spirit Guardians, right? When I was talking about Spirit Guardians, I said we want that to be necrotic damage. This is why. Now we can ignore necrotic resistance. We get that synergy. Everybody that we're creeping up on with the Guardians, they get to take full damage whether they like it or not. They still take half damage on a save. That's different. That's not resistance. But yeah, if they have resistance to it, we bypass it. At level 9, we're Cleric 7. That gives us Blessed Strikes. We're going to talk about that more on a couple slides here. I would pick up Freedom of Movement and Divination. Again, there's a lot of good 4th level spells, but remember the way that I'm playing this character. I'm going to upcast Bless. I'm going to upcast Spirit Guardians. I'm going to save a 3rd level spell slot. I'm going to save maybe a 4th level spell slot. But all the other slots, I'm basically just going to use for Spirit Guardians or use for Bless and cast maybe some healing words, some good berries, some things like that. But in combat, we're running around, we're doing cantrips, attacking with our crossbow, hiding, sneaking, avoiding concentration checks. So we want to focus on spells that are good out of combat. Freedom of movement is, I mean, it's just one of those things where when you need it, when your barbarian's trapped, pinned down, grappled, being eaten by a monster, and you just walk up and say, okay, none of that. Be free, my ally. And it's, oh my goodness, it's game changing. So freedom of movement, not because it's one of the best spells, but situationally when you need it, it is so good. It is so ridiculously good. Divination is fun if you end the day with a 4th level spell slot. You can just drop that and do some divination. It's fun. Level 8 Cleric, that's where we get our feat. And we're going to take +2 wisdom, cap at 20 wisdom. Again, there's a whole bunch of different routes that we can take, but our feats from 1 to 20 are all taken up. We get the Inspiring Leader. We get wisdom capped. We're going to go for Resilient Constitution at some point, and then we're going to use our last 2 feats for epic boons. I'll show you how we're going to do that. But everything's called for, so we have to use it here to get our wisdom capped. +5 modifier for our spell DC now. More hit points from Inspiring Leader, more perception, more insight, more all things Cleric. So good. Blessed Strikes. Adding 5 damage to Toll the Dead cantrip is good. Or Chill Touch, or Poison Spray eventually when we get that. Just realize that if you have 2 targets close together and you get to Toll the Dead both with Reaper, This 5 damage applies to both instances of Toll the Dead, and it's really good. And the math says it's really good. The problem is later you're going to get improved Blessed Strikes, and it's going to give temporary hit points. And we've already dished out a ton of temporary hit points at every rest. So the likelihood that those temporary hit points are going to be effective is reduced. Doesn't mean that it's bad, but it's less good. So we're going to look away from that, and we're going to look to the other type of Blessed Strike, where we're going to get an extra D8 of necrotic damage when we hit with a weapon. We've got advantage, so the likelihood, our statistical chance to deliver that damage is really high. And in melee, the extra D8 can apply to both main hand and offhand attacks if we were to get into melee and do dual wielding. So it's interesting. It's kind of nice. Unfortunately, it says specifically in Blessed Strikes that if you get it from a subclass, you only get it once. And we did get it from Death Domain. So we got Blessed Strikes already from Death Domain, and we get it from Cleric class, and they can't overlap. It's unfortunate. It would be nice to take the D8 from one and then take the cantrip bonus from the other, but double dipping not allowed. All right, with our second feat secured, our wisdom capped at 20. Now we can take that level of rogue. We take Arcane Trickster. A Mage Hand is a locked cantrip, so we're going to take that no matter what. Poison Spray, I think, is good. That's 3d12 necrotic damage. Remember, at level 11, all of these little cantrips that level up have gotten their extra bonus die at level 11. So now Poison Spray is 3d12. It's pretty good. Toll the Dead's 3d8 or 3d12. Poison Spray is necrotic. It is affected by Reaper, so you can cast it. And that puts us with a spell, Toll the Dead. The monster is in control with their saving throw of whether or not they take damage. With Poison Spray, we're in control whether or not we hit. And by this level, Poison Spray is going to pass up Toll the Dead. It's going to be better, but we'll pick it up here. And True Strike. And True Strike is going to keep us on track with our single target damage from our rogue. I think for spells, Shield and Magic Missile, again, Shield is going to help us if we get hit in melee, and we can avoid that hit, avoid that concentration check. Avoiding it is good. Magic Missile for disruption. We could stop using our wand and just have it as a spell. Jump is crazy. Jump is very, very good now. So we'll take it, and situationally it can give us another 20 feet of movement a turn, which isn't game-breaking for a character that already has a bunch of movement, but we'll take the extra 20, considering that we can jump over things. Level 3 gives that spellcasting level, so that does unlock 5th level spells, but X doesn't get 5th level cleric spells. But remember, because we get a spell level as an Arcane Trickster, that's going to allow us to upcast Spirit Guardians now to 5th level. So we'll take that. We're going to use True Strike when attacking with the heavy crossbow, so just kind of prove out how good this is already at level 11. It's going to take our crossbow attack now from a dexterity-based attack to a wisdom-based attack roll. Our wisdom is capped at 20 with a +5 bonus. We've got D10 weapon damage. We've got 2d6 radiant damage from True Strike, 2d6 of sneak damage from our rogue levels, and then we've got the 1d8 damage from the Blessed Strikes. So just assuming a +1 weapon, that would be 30 average damage per hit. And we're going to hit almost all the time. If we've got Bless up and running and advantage, we're going to hit with almost every attack against a reasonable armor class. 30 damage per hit isn't bad. If we don't have Bless up and running, instead we got Spirit Guardians, it drops from a 96% chance to hit to a 90% chance to hit. But remember, we've got a 90% chance to hit that 30 damage. And we also have Spirit Guardians at level 5, doing 23 average damage on 5d8, half on a save. But we're hitting multiple targets with that. So already our damage could be, between 50 and 100, depending on how many targets we can walk past with our Spirit Guardians. So if you want to just deal damage with this character, cast those Spirit Guardians, put in a big attack where it makes the most sense, and be a damage dealer. I think the character will split, sometimes dealing damage, sometimes doing the shots from stealth with Bless on the other party members. With regards to picking Bless or Spirit Guardians, just remember that if the rest of your party is reasonably efficient, like you've got a Barbarian and we got a Barbarian and a couple Rangers in my group, right? So if I Bless myself, a Barbarian, and 2 Rangers, or maybe even upcast it and include the Paladin as well, right? Those characters all improve their damage output. So improving their damage output is almost always going to be better than using Spirit Guardians, unless there's like 5 or more targets. If there's 5 or more targets, Spirit Guardians is better for the group as a whole. If there's less than 5 targets, or if a couple of them are going to die real fast, the Bless is just going to be better almost all the time. And the fact that it also helps your party's saving throws so they don't get charmed or held or damaged by fireballs, those kinds of things. It's really good. If another team member covers the Bless, then you're free to Spirit Guardian all you want. Our typical combat round is just going to be, moving with Spirit Guardians, doing the True Strike when it makes sense, hiding, dashing, trying to get a second trigger sometimes on the Spirit Guardians. By now, we're upcasting a lot. Just remember, take 1 3rd level spell slot and put it aside. Don't ever use that last 3rd level spell slot. It's the Revivify tax. It's part of a cleric's job. When a party member dies, thou shalt revivify. I can't say this for myself strongly enough. I mean, I'm going to be the guy who always has a 3rd level spell slot and Revivify ready to go. Because if I'm a cleric, that's part of my duties. You don't have to play it that way, but just to point out, that's how I will play when it's relevant. You could say, well, once 5th level spells are available, if somebody dies, I'll just wait till the next day, prepare a Raise Dead, and we'll be fine. Sure, it costs more. It costs 500 gold instead of 300. Revivify is just easy, right? As long as you cast it within a minute, they just come back to life. There's no downside. So consider that another cleric tax. 12 to 18, we're just going cleric. And this is the part where, each individual level, we get something good, but it's not changing the way we play our character. We're still going to be doing the same thing. Either Bless and then shooting from the shadows, or Spirit Guardians running around for big damage, helping our party. One or the other. But let's go through kind of the progression. Cleric 9, again, I think Greater Restoration, we'll grab that as a spell. Contagion is interesting. Situationally, it can be a very powerful poison effect. Again, if you're in a boss fight where controlling their healing is really important, getting that poisoned condition on them, getting it to stay, and making it very hard to remove, it's okay. It'll come up in 1 out of 20 combats, but again, like a lot of the spells that I'm suggesting, when it's good, it's really good. Greater Restoration, same thing. It's just a spell to have available if you need it. We could have other spells, but probably I'm just upcasting Spirit Guardians anyway. Cleric 10, we get Divine Intervention, gives us a free 5th level spell. Level 11 Cleric, we get Hero's Feast and Word of Recall. Word of Recall is kind of like an oh crap button. Things go badly, everybody gathers around you, you just go back to your safe place. True Sight's also interesting. There's a lot of game scenarios that kind of fall apart if somebody just has True Sight. That could be kind of fun. Again, combat, things that are situationally very good out of combat. Hero's Feast is expensive to use, but when you need it, it's unbeatable. Level 15, Cleric 12, we get another feat. We're going to take Resilient Constitution here. That's going to bump our con to 16. We're finally going to get the payoff for that 15 con from level 1. Get us some more hit points. Well, 15 more hit points, 1 per level for the extra Constitution. It's going to improve our Constitution save by a lot. And we're in the game now for making con saves and keeping our concentration. We still don't have advantage on that because we don't have Warcaster. So not great at keeping concentration, but now that it's a, we have resilient constitution, we're not going to fail. Just like 1 or 2 random checks we should be able to pass. It's just, I think, again, it's kind of, we got to pay the tax at some point. Because later in the game, you get hit for 45 damage, and your DC isn't 10 anymore, right? Your DC to maintain concentration is half the damage you took. So you're going to be making like DC 18, DC 22 checks if you get hit by high-level monsters. So as long as you're proficient in con saves, and have a good constitution, you got a chance of making those. Okay, Cleric, level 16 will be Cleric 13. Remember, we're 3 levels of Rogue, so 16 is Cleric 13, Rogue 3. We're going to take Power Word Fortify here. Again, probably not a choice that most people would make, but it's an out-of-combat thing. We're already giving people a bunch of temporary hit points every rest. But Power Word Fortify says you can divide up 120 temporary hit points to whoever you want. If you put 120 temporary hit points on a barbarian, and that barbarian rages, and that barbarian is a bear totem barbarian, that's 240 hit points, y'all. That's more hit points than most level 16 characters can even have. So you're giving them probably more temporary hit points than they have life, so to speak. Again, when you consider that hit points are twice as effective when the damage is being resisted. But anyway, so because I have a barbarian in the party, X will probably take Power Word Fortify. Won't use it much. Again, we want the spell slot for upcasting, Spirit Guardians. But yeah, if we know we're going into a boss fight, fighting some kind of crazy dragon or something, that would be pretty cool. Just whack on 120 hit points. Level 17 is level 14 Cleric. That's improved Blessed Strikes. Now we get another D8 on our attack, so it's up to 2D8. Level 18, we get Cleric 15. I like Holy Aura here. If you have a Paladin, we have a Paladin in our party. You can all gather around the Paladin, take the Aura's bonus to your saves. Holy Aura gives you advantage on all saving throws and disadvantage on attack rolls made against people in the Aura. So if you overlap it with a Paladin Aura, it's pretty interesting. You could also take Firestorm. Firestorm is a really good big AoE that just covers everything. 10 contiguous 10 by 10 squares of fire. So almost any configuration, any room, you need to kill a lot of different things. Firestorm just annihilates stuff. So okay, that could be good, but for high level fights, saves are critical. Level 19, that's the level that we're going to get Cleric 16. Cleric 16 is a feat level. So let's take a look at feat instructions. If you're instructed to take a feat from a specific category, that category must appear under the feat's name. If you're instructed to choose a feat and there's no category, you can choose from any category. So, epic boons require that you be level 19. We're a level 16 Cleric, but we're level 19 in total. We can take any feat, so we qualify for an epic boon at level 19. Now we're going to get the final payoff for how we did this build and why we took so many levels of Rogue and all this stuff. It'll all make sense because we're going to get a feat, an epic boon at 19 out of our Cleric. I like mobility. You've heard me talk about it before. We've had improved mobility. We've had Long Strider. We took Wood Elf. We're not exceptional. We don't have crazy speed. We don't have like 90 movement like a monk or something like that, but we're pretty fast. We're okay. Better than average. But we take the boon of speed, we're going to get plus 30 move speed, and all of the stuff that we're doing gets 30 feet around better. When we dash, we get 60 extra feet. Crazy. Crazy. Also lets you break grapples or disengage as a bonus action. You just say, you know what, I'm going to disengage as a bonus action. If I'm grappled, I'm not grappled anymore. Bye. Later. There's so many good epic boons. I mean, if you build this character for a level 21 shot, take whatever you want, you know? I'll probably take speed on Ecks. I love it. And then at level 20, we can grab our 4th level of Rogue. And the 4th level of Rogue is a feat level. We also qualify for an epic boon. We could take Dimensional Travel. It's another movement spell. Anytime we take the attack action or spell action, we can teleport 30 feet. So we're going to do that. It also gives us +1 wisdom. And with 2 epic boons like this, that's going to put our wisdom all the way up to 22. If we try to take a feat at a lower level, remember we're capped at 20. So the only way we can get to a 22 wisdom this way is to be able to hit 2 epic boons at 19 and 20. Each one, their cap is 30. So we're able to go over the cap. There's some capstones that give you a bunch of skills that will allow you to go higher than 20, at your class's capstone. But with this particular build, that's how we're going to get 22 wisdom. Now, if you go and you look at Arcane Trickster, level 3, where you get your subclass, is a spell level. Level 4 is also a spell level for Arcane Trickster. So we're going to end up this build with 4 levels of Rogue, but we're still going to be an 18th level spellcaster. We're going to have all those slots. Ecks won't have a 9th level Cleric spell because he never hit level 17. Level 17 is a lot to give up with a Cleric. It's also where you get improved Reaper with Death Domain. Again, if you wanted to do a level 21 shot, 17 Cleric is completely legit. There's a lot of good reasons to take 17 Cleric. 9th level spell, improved Reaper. But I like the 2 epic boons. And you're still an 18th level caster in terms of spell slots. So that's pretty fun. All right, for level 20 boss encounters, when we get up, even if, whatever, level 17, 18, 19, 20, these high level encounters, saving throws are critical. Monster looks at you, make a saving throw. Oh, you failed, you're dead. There are monsters that just kill you on the spot. There's also a lot of things that Dragon Breath at this level, it's easy to have a dragon that could average 90 to 100 damage on its breath weapon across everybody in the party. You make your save, it drops to 45. If you take that across 5 characters, 45 damage times 5 is like 180 hit points that you're saving the party. So just some of these boss encounters, you're just going to want to have Holy Aura on. It's our only concentration spell, right? But engaging the start of that combat, walking into the room, getting into position, starting the fight, man, angels, demons, dragons, big things, end game bosses. This is probably what you start the combat with. Within a couple rounds, the party will establish positioning, maybe get some control spells in there, banish a creature, whatever happens, and then you can switch over to a different spell that's situationally better. But starting the fight with Holy Aura, especially if you can overlap that with a Paladin, Paladin's giving you +5 to all your saves, and you have advantage, and you have good stats, that's a lot of saves that you're going to make. And remember, as a rogue, we've got dexterity and intelligence as proficient. We've also got a high wisdom, so we're not proficient there, but we have a high wisdom, and we took proficiency in con saves. So really got pretty good saves in this character. Shouldn't be getting charmed too much. Still subject to things like banish that oddly have charisma saves, but yeah, so something to think about. If you have a more normal encounter, upcast your Spirit Guardians, and using your 9th level spell slot for Spirit Guardians is legit. If you've got a +3 Amulet of the Devout, again, say it for the 19th time, that's really the item that you want on the character. Really high DC on the damage saves, 40 damage average with 98. And you can trigger that damage twice per turn quite often. It's not that hard. So getting 80 damage a turn on one target, if there's 3 or 4 targets, hundreds of damage per turn. Hundreds of damage. So upcasting the 9th level with Spirit Guardians, legit. Your true strike damage, you're plus 14 to hit if you got a plus 2 weapon. Again, we're using our wisdom with true strike. Against 22 armor class, 88% with advantage. The damage is a d10, 2d6 sneak, 2d8 blessed strikes, 3d6 true strike at this level, and plus 8 because of your wisdom plus your weapon. 39 average damage, 88%, 34 damage per hit. If that's your only attack for the round, it's not great at this level. But remember, if we don't have that running, it's because we're blessing the rest of the party and making them all better. Or we have Spirit Guardians up, and then our damage goes crazy. So if you have Spirit Guardians up, and you just assume 3 targets, and you assume that we cast it at 6th level, we could do that. 6d8, 3 targets, 27 damage, 13 on a save. If the enemy has a plus 10 save at this level, we would average 67 damage on 3 targets with just one hit. That's 101 damage a round. That puts us on par with almost any reasonable damage dealer that's not optimized at this level. And that's not our job, right? Our job isn't damage. Our job is support, rogue, scout, all that stuff. And also we can do this damage when we want to. Here's how to trigger things twice without being in range. Let's say we've got a large enemy. Now, if it's gigantic and it has 15-foot reach, I mean, there's not much you can do against stuff that's, colossal or gargantuan. But against a large enemy, the purple dot represents a tank. You're a barbarian, somebody who's standing in front of the monster as a tank. The blue dot represents us, Ecks as a cleric, with our 15-foot emanation. So you can see we're parked here, 10 feet behind our tank. The 15-foot of emanation covers the target, and he's got a lot of bad choices. So he can either take the Spirit Guardians a second time by ending his turn in the same spot where he is. He can walk away from the tank. If this tank has sentinel feet, as soon as it tries to move away, trigger attack of opportunity. Maybe it doesn't even get to move. Just stop it in place, right? So it can't really move away. If it wants to move around the purple dot and attack me, it can do that. But then it's still going to take the sentinel attack. I will probably maintain concentration. So then it moved. It hit me. Maybe I use shield. It doesn't even hit me. Takes the sentinel attack and also the Spirit Guardian's damage. So you give your enemies a whole bunch of bad options. It's pretty broken. I think Spirit Guardians is crazy. And some of the druid spells, summon, one of the conjure spells or summon spells works like Spirit Guardians but has even more damage. It's really fantastic. So those I think are going to be cornerstones for a lot of builds. Bless and Bane, even at level 20, are still game changers. You can only concentrate on one spell. The rules do clarify now. It makes it very clear that as soon as you start casting another concentration spell, you lose concentration on the existing spell. So that's a bummer. If you lose concentration on a better spell, Bane is still a good option. After adding Resilient Con, pushing your con to 16, X still doesn't have damage reducing tools. So if he gets hit by 50, hit for 50, he'll succeed on a DC 25 check 25% of the time. A little bit more than that if that spell that he's concentrating on is actually Bless. So even at high levels, we should try to stay out, skirmish, not get hit. Items, the +3 Amulet of the Devout is kind of the character defining. It's the best thing. If you don't have it, it doesn't mean the character's bad, but it's the thing that you want most in the game. +3 armor, shields, and weapons. If they're just plain shield, armor, and weapon, they don't use attunement slots. But as soon as it's armor of something, it uses attunement. So watch your attunement spots. If you get cool armor, you'll run out fast. I like Boots of Speed somewhere in the build. Getting double your movement is crazy. It's so good. Winged Boots, also fantastic. Potions of Haste, other things that increase your mobility. This character wants to move around freely. Ghost Step Tattoo or Blood Fury Tattoo, I think, are good. lore appropriate things. And I mean, if you just look at that list, Amulet of Devout and a couple tattoos, and you're already capped on your attunement. All right. So in conclusion, this is intended to be a continuous campaign build, so every level is going to bring something new. I don't think we'll make it to level 20 on these characters. I think, you know, level 8 for Goblin Stone, and then if we play some stuff afterwards, you know, 10, 12, I don't know how high they're going to get, but I don't feel like it's going to go all the way to 20, or at least from what we've talked about as a group, we'd probably start a new campaign before we'd take them that high. But it's still fun to think of all the way through to the end what it would look like. So at level 20, Inspiring Leader is crazy. It's 26 temporary hit points by now, right? Plus 6 for our Wisdom, level 20 for the character, with 1 long rest and 2 short rests in a day, and 5 party members. That's 390 hit points as a feat. As a feat that also gave me a stat bonus. 390 hit points. There's no spell in the game that can restore that much, or even come close. Damage output for this character, if you run Spirit Guardians, can be on the level of any semi-optimized build. But what I like about the build is not necessarily that it's the best damage dealer or the best cleric or the best support or whatever, but the breadth of what this character can do. Running around, delivering damage, mobility, saving other characters, carrying the party's bless, the utility, mobility, and that's what I love about the character. This character is really a kingmaker, right? Makes everybody else in the party work better, function better, have the confidence that even if they get taken out of 0 hit points, they're going to be stood right back up by a fast-moving elf. I love it. I love this build. I can't wait to play it. And to finish up, let me just say, feedback is welcome. I read through the new rules. I did my best to interpret and understand exactly what all this stuff is, what it meant, what it does. And if I got any of it wrong, let me know. You know, put it in the comments. And other people watching this video probably want to learn as well. So yeah, and just to remind you, this is a character that I'm actively playing Monday nights. If you've made it all the way through to the end, this went a lot longer than I thought it was going to. But if you're still here, come over and see Ecks in action. He's currently level 3. DM Fanor on Twitch, or check us out on YouTube with the uploads after the streams. Come watch the Mythlanders. Let's go. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Please remember to hit that like button on the way out. If you didn't hit it on the way in, I certainly would appreciate that. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next adventure.